Hello, I am Nontobeko Gumede and you are watching Vision 2024. The Companies Tribunal is an agency of the Department of Trade and Industry, and it's tasked with providing timeless resolutions for company disputes. To take us through the organization's journey and future plans, I'm joined by Chairperson Judge Dennis Davis and the Head of Marketing and Communications, Simukele Khoza. Gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Judge Davis, let me just start off with you. What is the purpose of establishing this tribunal? What is the mandate here?
Okay, well, I think I can explain it perhaps best by, as you know, the Competition Act set up a competition commission and a competition tribunal and then a court. And the idea was that all sorts of issues of competition, antitrust, competition questions would be dealt with by them. So the idea was that when we drafted the 2008 Companies Act, have a similar set of institutions for companies, meaning if people had problems with regard to disputes amongst themselves in their companies, then you'd have a body which would be able to deal with this cheaply and quickly and ensure that everybody would have access to justice, but not through the convoluted, expensive ways of courts. And that was really the central idea.
And just with that being said, Simukele, can you just talk to us about the types of disputes that take place, that the Companies Tribunal, faces?
Thank you. So one of the things that are important here is to highlight that we are established to provide speedy resolution to company disputes for free. And for that reason, we have a number of disputes that one can actually file with the Companies Tribunal. And amongst them is name disputes. We should be aware that when people have companies, they would have companies registered with the CIPC. And sometimes people register companies to confuse others, to believe that this is the same name. So we have had a lot of applications that relates to name disputes. I think I can quickly give one example. So we received an application from Dolce & Gabbana as an international brand to say that in South Africa there's another company that is registered as Dolce & Gabbana. So that is a name dispute. So any person that finds that there's a company that runs or trades with a name similar to theirs, they must quickly file an application with the Companies Tribunal so that the Companies Tribunal can issue a decision or order to stop the other company, because there must not be confusion around the names. The other one that is also critically important is the issue of director disputes. Most of the time when people start businesses, they start sometimes with family, with friends and colleagues, and eventually at the end you find that as directors of the company, there's misunderstanding, or the other party is not actually doing what is actually expected of them. And for that reason, they can then file an application to request the Companies Tribunal to remove the other party. You see? So that is very important, because you don't want a situation where, as directors, people should be worried about going to courts. So they should not be worried about going to courts, but look at us as an alternative to courts as the Companies Tribunal. I think the last, perhaps, example that I can actually give is that there's companies in South Africa, public companies, that after formation, they need to actually hold their annual general meetings. And if they're not actually able to do that, they can then file an application with the Companies Tribunal to request extension to convene their annual general meetings. We have seen a lot of those during COVID, as you could be aware. So it is very important that companies should always remember that if they're not in a position to convene the annual general meetings, they should file with the Companies Tribunal. And the other reason that they bring is, for example, if their financials are not ready, there's no way that companies can actually hold their annual general meetings when their financials are not ready. So they file an application with the tribunal to request extension.
You know, the organization has been around for quite some time, 10 years, and you have been able to reduce your turnaround time when it comes to these disputes. Can you just share some other notable achievements that you have, achieved thus far?
Well, I think the part of the point is, as Mr. Khoza has rightly said, you've got these cases which essentially come to us in fairly significant numbers. In other words, a company has a name, turns out that another company has the same name. That's not that difficult to do, but the truth is that those issues can be dealt with very quickly. Same with, for example, questions, well, you haven't got a social and economic committee, which you have to have, in the terms of the Companies Act. You have an exemption because there's no need. I think we do pretty well on those issues. The challenge is the more complex company disputes. That's where the challenge lies.
As I was about to ask, is there any dispute that was ever like unsolved?
Well, there will be. You see, when the Act was formulated, it had a fairly modest set of objectives, and I think we do pretty well on that. So in other words, as Mr. Khoza rightly says, if you've got any of the disputes that he's talking about, you know, those get done in a couple of weeks. You don't pay for them, you get them done. You almost have to come to us if you want an extension of a meeting, if you want an exemption from a social and economic committee, if you've got a problem with the fact that somebody else has your name. But the real kind of, I think, heavy-duty stuff is going to be where you have really fundamental disputes amongst directors, or alternatively really big company disputes. Now, until now, the Act has had a very modest ambit. In other words, it looked, I think, in the main through the prism of small companies. Now let me make the point. Small companies really do need us. Because if you're a company with 1 or 2 or 3 directors and you're a small and medium-sized business, frankly you don't have the money to go to court and go through a whole range of appeals. It's going to cost you a fortune. So you come to us, we do it cheaply, we do it quickly, and there is no additional cost. And I think that's been the major achievement. The real issue now is we've now been given the sole power to arbitrate all forms of company disputes. Any dispute which flows from the Companies Act of 2008, if you don't want to go to court, you can't go to private arbitration anymore, which by the way costs an absolute arm and a leg, you come to us. And so our challenge now is to provide an outstanding mediation and arbitration service for all companies, big and small. And I think that's going to be the next chapter of this particular institution.
Now, Simukele, for that process of saving your arm and leg, how can SMEs or other companies, start the process of filing applications for adjudication and alternative, dispute resolution?
With regards to adjudication, members of companies can file through what is called CTR 142. Then when they do that, they will also have to provide a proof of authority. They need to be able to provide information to substantiate their application, or an affidavit stating the facts on which the application is actually based. And that is one on adjudication. Secondly, on ADR, they will need to complete a form which is called CTR 132.1, and they will also do the same, provide any other information that can actually assist. But one thing that you need to also highlight here is that at the Companies Tribunal, it is not a requirement to have a legal representation, considering that members of the tribunal themselves are firstly experts in company law, secondly they are trained mediators. So that's why I want to actually encourage the business community to utilize these services of the Companies Tribunal, which is going to be benefiting to them and their clients. And for that reason, they will actually get a quick decision from the Companies Tribunal, which, if they are not satisfied, for example, with the decision of the Companies Tribunal, they can actually take it to court for review, which is very important. So that's the recourse that basically companies have, Yeah.
Thank you for that, Simukele. And just on that note, Judge Davis, maybe you can also chip in as well. What is your vision for the organization just going forward?
Well, that's a really good question. I suppose I can contextualize this way. There is a tendency worldwide to actually no longer go to court. All over the world, people are using alternative dispute resolution mechanisms. They go to arbitration, they do mediation. We don't do enough mediation in South Africa. So immediately I have a dispute with you, I'm rushing off to court. And, to some extent, judges are supposed to see whether they can't have the matter settled. In many countries, it's compulsory mediation. So what is our vision? To ensure that many of these disputes probably can be settled by an experienced mediator trying to get the parties to get some settlement, perhaps to have their own government of national unity, as it were. That's the art. If you can't do that, then you're going to have to go to an adversarial process, which is the arbitration, as opposed to going to court. Now, to date, if you ask, people are rushing off to private arbitration, which can cost hundreds of thousands of rands because you've got to pay the arbitrator significant sums of money. What we are saying to the business community, we were set up precisely for the purpose of ensuring that a statute, the Companies Act, be adjudicated by us. So you get a consistent set of decisions. We can publish them on an anonymous basis so people can know what we're doing. And ultimately our vision is that where company disputes are arbitrated, they're arbitrated by us. We have exclusive jurisdiction, but that's just been introduced right now. So my vision, for what it's worth, is that we become the central forum, say, for courts, for dealing with all company disputes, big companies and small. Any
parting shots there, Simukele?
So the Companies Tribunal is actually a reliable and trusted brand, and want to really encourage members of the business community to take advantage and resolve their company disputes through us, which is speedily and for free.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
For giving us that insightful information. I think, small business owners will really benefit from this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
That was a chairperson of Companies Tribunal, Judge Dennis Davis, and the organization's head of marketing and communications, Simukele Khoza. For more information on the Companies Tribunal, please do visit www.companiestribunal.org.za. Do stay tuned for more on Business Day TV programming after the break.